Welcome to the Internet of Things Made Simple. I'm Larry by Humor. This is mini episode number 9, and I thank you for joining us. Shout out to our new listeners. There was a ton in January and a bunch already in February. Welcome aboard. As always, check out our webpage, theinternetofThingsmadesimple.com, which has some great material on IoT. And I kindly ask you to subscribe to this podcast using your favorite podcast service. So tonight we're going to talk about road warriors. I was a road warrior. I hate to admit it because it's not something you should be proud of, I think, but I spent way too much of my adult life on the road. I personally define being a road warrior when you either approach or you spend more business days away from your home than you do at home. Not sure how you define it, but that's probably in the same ballpark. It may be international travel. Maybe you do that great, New York to Hong Kong trip all the time. It could just be continent-based traveling. So whether you're in Europe and just stay in Europe or North America, or it could even be driving. We always talk about road warriors as being in the airport, but a lot of people just drive from place to place, whether that's long-haul truck drivers or salespeople. Either way, you're not at home as much as you might want to be. Business travel takes its toll in a few ways. The first is your marriage or your partnership, although ironically, it might not be this case for everyone. I have known a few couples that truly got along better because it was almost like when they came back, they were dating because they didn't see each other as much. So depending on your relationship, some couples might thrive, but most are going to have issues with road warriors. And that's also because of number 2, you're going to miss things at home. Your kids walking for the first time, you're going to miss some soccer games, dance recitals, school plays, those kind of things. And the last one is the one that most people think about, is the wear and tear it has on your health. I know it was a huge factor in me gaining weight. Stopping at McDonald's at the airport might not have been the best decision I ever had when it came to my health, but sometimes you only had 10 minutes to grab something. You didn't have as much choice as you might think. The second one is it's tougher to exercise. Yeah, you could get up at 4 o'clock in the morning if you have an early flight and go for a run on the treadmill, but if you're out with a customer the night before, that might be a little difficult. So it's not impossible to exercise on the road. It's just more difficult. It definitely affects your sleep. Unless you're out drinking every night and passing out, you're going to have issues sleeping, especially the first night in your hotel. I used to do a lot of, 4 cities and 5 night type trips, and you just never seem to get adjusted. The last part, I know there's been medical research on it, but I just knew that being on a plane that many times in a week just made me feel off. I don't know if it was the germs in the air, if it was the pressure of the cabin. I have no idea. I didn't feel good after flying that many times. There are obviously some tricks you can do. I just remember Die Hard with the whole idea of taking off your socks and scrunching your feet on the carpet. I never did try that one. I always wonder if it worked. Tell me if it did. Drop me a note. I used to use things like white noise applications on my iPad beside my bedside. And in order to get used to it, I used to run it at home. And that way, everywhere I went, I had these white noise. The funny story there was my wife got used to it. So the first time I traveled and took my iPad with me, she couldn't sleep very well. She had to try to scramble and download the application. Another one is earplugs. The funny story there was I was staying in a hotel in Eugene, Oregon, and they had these bright orange earplugs by the bed. And it said, you might want to put these in because of the train. Didn't think much of it. 5 o'clock in the morning, I guess the conductor has a little bit too much fun with his whistle. And I was just glad the earplugs were there. Other people do things like bring their own pillow. The better way, though, is to reduce the amount of trips you take in the first place, as well as to make each trip just a little less stressful. IoT is helping out on both of those. In terms of reducing travel, a lot of business travel is unavoidable, especially in the sales and big business deal side. Customers want to see you face to face. Sometimes you have to do demos in person. So I do want to talk about reducing trips, but I am aware that some of them cannot be eliminated. However, if you make your products better and you improve your service level, customers tend to be happier and they're able to get more information. This should eliminate some of the need for travel. An example is how AI and big data are used to improve customer service call-in level. By using automated attendants, not the ones that are annoying, we got to push buttons and tell them 5 times what you want, but the better ones that are coming out will allow customers to get information faster, and that will mean they'll call you less, and perhaps you have to travel less to keep them happy. The other part is to make products better using AI, big data, but more importantly, IoT. If you're using sensors on board and it's able to gather information about customer usage, you're now going to be able to change features to make them more optimized for customers. So if customers don't need all that extra battery life you have on board, you can use a smaller battery, and that will make the product much more usable. It also allows you to understand possible issues in advance, so that way you know to call the customer and even fix a problem over the air. AI combined with IoT does help to provide better service. Sometimes meetings are inevitable. A lot of customers now are starting to see that the use of AI is eliminating a lot of them, though. As an example, as we move more towards AI and automation, machines don't meet customers. They definitely don't bond over a beer. At least I don't think they do. For customers looking for information, that can be done quite quickly by a machine query and by some of the tools that allow for customers to do self-service. And that's going to eliminate a lot of the need for meetings in general. It also eliminates the need for a lot of face-to-face meetings over decisions. I couldn't stand those. I worked at a carrier and God love them, but you'd have 4 pre-meetings before the big meeting. You'd have a post-meeting, then a post-mortem meeting, and then a meeting to talk about the post-mortem. You'd have like 10 meetings over one decision. And even then, you didn't always come to a decision. More decisions are going to be made by data now, by AI applications. And they don't need to meet, and they don't need to have conference bridges and all this other fun stuff. They just make the decision and tell you what they did. And that's going to help to eliminate a lot of meetings, especially travel-based ones. The last way that IoT is helping is by enhancing video conferencing and e-meetings. The one I wanted to point out was from a company called Owl Labs. They're making a smarter camera that can capture 360 video and all the surroundings to give you a much more lifelike experience. It also uses sensors to eliminate noise. So no more that, can you guys still hear me? What's that noise in the background? It's going to make remote calls much better. And the other nice part to it is that when you have a road warrior, you almost become your own IT team. And a lot of people have issues when it comes to setting things up. This just needs to be plugged into a USB port, and your IT guys can quickly set it up remotely, or I guess it does itself. I'm not really sure, but either way, it's much more user-friendly. So imagine you have to take that trip. There's no other way around it. You're stuck. You got to take it. There's a lot of ways that IoT is making your trip much easier. One is when you first get to the airport, it's improving the check-in experience. The example I wanted to talk about was in Dubai, they have a facial recognition system that if you're set up for it, can identify you and check you in a matter of 15 to 20 seconds, and then send you an alert to your phone to let you know you've been checked in. That could eliminate, tens of minutes sometimes. Getting around the airport can be fun, and the example I want to talk about here was Miami-Dade Airport uses hundreds, I think it was 400 sensors, to help customers navigate. But the interesting part was that you can even put in personalized requests. So take me to a place that has gluten-free food, and it will navigate you using beacons and sensors. So it makes it a lot easier for you. I think there's been a lot of talk about TSA, especially with the U.S. government shutdown, and that has to do with shorter lines. I think a lot of us have been using biometrics, whether it's eye scans or thumbprints or a combination of the two, and that allows you for local travel as well as for international travel using the Nexus and Global Access, I think it's called. Once you're ready to take off, the next issue is delays, and that can be by a number of reasons. I remember one time I was at the Chicago airport where it got so cold outside, and in case you're wondering, how cold was it? It was so cold that the toilet on board the airplane froze, and the guy had to go out there with a warm blanket and wrap it around, I guess, the tank somewhere. Not the kind of job I would want in the minus whatever temperature, but issues can happen to cause delays all the time. IoT helps everywhere here. By using much more onboard maintenance on the planes, the chances of having unwanted downtime reduces dramatically. You're able to schedule maintenance better. You're able to see trends about parts wearing out. It just makes for a much better plane experience, safer and more reliable. The other issue is always weather. There's only so much you can do. If a storm's affecting the entire eastern seaboard of the U.S., there's no way to fly around it sometimes, so there's only so much you can do. But if you can see weather patterns better using more advanced IoT sensors, that will definitely help to reduce the amount of delays caused by weather. Once you're up in the air, though, the in-flight experience can be improved in a couple ways. One is issues you might have. So perhaps you're an anxious flyer, perhaps you're not feeling well, maybe you're sweating too much. A lot of the sensors on board seats on the airplanes are now able to read things like anxiety, if you're hydrated, and even your temperature. So that allows the flight attendant to know what's going on and to react faster to people. On a more positive note, though, if you do fly a lot, you might find that the experience is getting an awful lot more creepy than it might have been before. So you might sit down in your seat, then all of a sudden the vent might open up and air might flow on you. And you might wonder, how do they know I want more air? Or you might sit down in first class and they'll bring you a scotch on the rocks if that's your drink. And you might wonder, how do they know what I drink? I haven't flown with this flight attendant before. A lot of the data being gathered now is based on personalization. So it's able to know what you did before, even going as far as to recommend movies based on what you might have watched on the in-flight entertainment system. Finally, lost bags suck. There's no other way around it. And if they don't lose your bags, the other part that sucks is waiting for an hour for the bag to finally come down. Using IoT, it's much less likely that your bag will get lost, and it's going to allow for a much more prompt delivery service. So it's going to improve overall. So as you can see, IoT is going to help to hopefully reduce the amount of times you have to travel. And if you do have to travel, it'll make it a little less stressful. I hope you enjoyed this mini episode. Full episode is back on again next week as always, and I look forward to talking to you then. Thanks again. Take care. This is Larry About Humor.